Okay, so today we shall look into, sorry, so where's my, okay. So as we are on our journey for the YHZP, we will continue today with our chapter. We're going to move on a bit faster. We're going to have your main key chapter, which will be so main key chapter that is on your chapter 42. 42. So chapter 42 would be the beginning of the negative, the sha, which is then on your death and emptiness, which is actually your liu jia gong. So therefore that will be your death and emptiness. Then of course we'll have all the other supplementary part which will come in on the other side as well. So this will be our focus for the day. So it will be quite good if time permits. But the main focus will be on chapter 42. Then the rest all will be just very quick, and the materials have been uploaded. I think it's just for some very light. So usually the heavyweight or the main emphasis will be this chapter. And while the rest chapters that are often forgettable or often overlooked, as in the part. Alright. Okay. So as we move along, let's take a look into the reading for 42, which will be the death and emptiness. So in the death and emptiness, the way to read, of course, if you follow the poems, would be to consider that all the 60 pillars, so the 60 pillars are arranged and decomposed into 6 groups, known as G1 to G6. The groups comes about because for each group they are all 10 stems, so they're all together 10 stems. And as we know, out of the 10 stems, the pairing to form a pillar will be 1 stem to a branch. Therefore, with 10 stems, there can only be 10 pillars. And these 10 pillars, knowingly, come from 12 branches, indicating that then there are then these 2 extra branches. So these 2 extra branches will then be known as death and emptiness. If the branch is yang, it's often known as death. And if the branch is yin, then it's known as emptiness. So death and emptiness is the yang and the yin. So each of the 2 branches will then form it, as it is. So here we take a look at your pillar. And so the pillar would begin with the jiaji. So therefore, with that in mind, that is also the so this will be the wood rat. So the wooden rat will be the first pillar, and from this pillar, as we go down to the last, which is your water rooster. Therefore, here the 2 missing pillars will be pillar number 11 and pillar number 12. So with pillar number 11 and pillar number 12, therefore that will be just the end of your group 1. Group 1. Oh, Diogo, yeah, hi, sorry. Should have guessed as well. Thank you. Right, then here we have your group 2. So group 2 will then begin with jia. So even in Chimen, if we refer to the Chimen Tunjia, you can also see that Chimen has this following grouping, where the head of every group, the leader of each group, will then be a jia. So therefore the jia is sometimes known as the king. So sometimes we consider jia to be somewhat like a king, because it is the leader of a group. So the leader of a group. Okay, so here there are 6 groups, and so we normally refer to the day master. So if let's say we have a Renshen, where do we find Renshen? We will find Renshen to be here, group 1. Now usually we do consider that there is often affinity. So there is often an affinity. Now, can you just key into the chat, just out of curiosity, just to do a bit of research? Can you just type down your group number for your day master? Which group do you belong to? Do a bit of a research. G1. Okay. Everybody else, just quickly key into your part. So Jenny G1. Everybody else, anybody? G1. Corinne G5. Kimte G5. Alright. G6. You think. Why? You do not know your day master, or you can't? You are not familiar with the Chinese character? Or at least put it in English. What is your day master, Diogo? So we have Pik Pui with G3. G3. Alright. So let's just go around. Day master plus your branch. Correct. Your pillar, your day pillar. G6. So G6 it is. Okay. Alright. So we do have a few on G1, G5, G6. So there's a bit of an affinity. For me, my day pillar is G1. I have a day pillar in G1, and I'm born in a year. My year pillar is G5. So sometimes we have what we call affinity. You know, sometimes you can be half a globe away on the other side of the planet, or traveling on a dark corner of a street, and you can still bump into some of your acquaintances. And the tendency that you bump into acquaintances are those that you bump into that shares your similar group. So therefore, we call this affinity. So the affinity, so this will be your pillar affinity. So therefore, death and emptiness would mean the opposite of affinity. It means no affinity. Okay, so therefore here we have the day master, which is the Renshen. So we start off with the Renshen day master. So the Renshen day master will have no affinity with dog and no affinity with the pig. Therefore, that's where they consider it to be no affinity, as in one that's called death and one is called emptiness. Okay. Therefore, here I beg your pardon. I meant it the other way around. Yang represents emptiness. Cool. And yin represents death. So therefore, the yang represents the emptiness. Yin represents the death. And in a way, let's say for example here the dog represents the emptiness, the pig represents the death. And so if the pig represents the death, what is the exact opposite? What is the exact opposite, or the clash of the pig? The clash of the pig will then be the snake. Therefore, the snake will be the solitary star. The solitary star. So actually today's sharing can be 2 in 1. So later when we go into the chapter for solitary star, then voila, we already have the code, so to speak, to get the solitary star. So the lonely and empty also comes into it. So therefore here we find that the dog will then clash with the dragon. So the dragon becomes the so-called your lonely and empty star as well. Therefore here we find the so-called the yin and the yang of the Kong. Right, so here we would like to consider, so let's take a look into identify. Let's come to identify with just a few of these chart. We have Kamala Harris chart. So let's just do some exercise a bit. Kamala Harris day master is Ren Yin, so therefore water tigers. Kamala Harris day master is water tiger, Ren Yin. So if it's a Ren Yin day master, what would be the death and emptiness? What would be the death and emptiness for a Ren Yin? Therefore here this is where you will find your Ren Yin. So in that case it will be the Chen dragon, Dragon will then be the emptiness. Snake will then be the death. So death and emptiness. So the year. So here we can find that the dragon and the snake will then be the pillar for death and emptiness. So if it is in the luck pillar, if it is in the year pillar, the year of the dragon, the luck pillar, or in any other pillar, then that pillar will have what we call no affinity. No affinity. So having no affinity would then be death and emptiness. And so usually, now death and emptiness doesn't really denote death per se. It's not really one of the reading, but it normally denote that the energy level is weak. So the energy level will be weak. Therefore, that would be look into Kamala Harris. Can we take a look into another person? We have recently passed on, a tribute to him a bit, Ananda Krishna. Now, Ananda Krishnan here was one of the top 10 wealthiest person in Malaysia, and a multi-billionaire with tremendously amount of projects. And so here Ananda Krishnan, his day master is the water pig, Kueh Hai. And so if a person with water pig, what is the luck pillar? What is the death and emptiness? Water pig. Okay, so if it's a water pig, then we find that the rat and the ox. Therefore here, for a person whose day pillar is water pig, then the rat represents the emptiness and the ox represents the death. So therefore, death and emptiness. Death and emptiness. Alright, so here Jesus. So therefore, we will be looking into the rat and we'll be looking into the ox. And so in the first part, we will read and see whether is there death and emptiness on the pillar. In the absence of information on the hour, therefore here no. So we'll consider that there is that Ananda Krishnan had a chart without death and emptiness on the pillar, on the natal chart. So no death and emptiness on the natal chart. Unlike when we saw Kamala Harris, so Kamala Harris will then have death and emptiness. Kamala Harris' death and emptiness can be seen because here in the chart it is immediately highlighted for you, which is both the dog and I beg your pardon. I think this may not. I think you may need correction. I beg your pardon. Therefore, this will be the dragon, and therefore here we see that the dragon and the this one would be this will be the tiger. Let me just clarify a bit on this part. Alright, but the dragon definitely would be the death and emptiness into the chart. Sorry. Okay, so coming back to Ananda Krishna. So Ananda Krishna would then be luck pillar 81. Luck pillar 81. So luck pillar 81. So therefore the rat and the ox. So the rat and the ox would then be the death and emptiness. So it's a death and emptiness pillar. Death and emptiness pillar. Therefore that would be on the case of the rat. The rat would then be death and emptiness. So normally you can find, so the question of course is, step number 1 of course, identify the death and emptiness. And then number 2, where is it? Where is it? Is it found on the natal chart? Is it found on the luck pillar? On the luck pillar. And if it's found on the luck pillar, then death and emptiness normally denotes no affinity, a pillar with no affinity, and usually it just means low energy, very low. So the low energy or the low chi will then be the pillar that is weaker. It's a weaker pillar. Now of course, the words death and emptiness sound negative, but actually it is now contextual. It depends on whether that element would be useful to you or otherwise. So therefore, is it useful? Is it, if it is useful, then it can be good. It can be good. Okay, so this is where we would like to consider what happens when individuals are born under death and emptiness. So if it is born in a strong position, so let's consider that if death and emptiness is favorable. Yes, it can. Death and emptiness can be favorable. Can be favorable. So if death and emptiness is favorable, then it would deserve fame, grand demeanor, and of course unexpected good fortune. The reason why we call it unexpected, undeserved, is because you have no affinity. There is no affinity. So having no affinity to this and getting it, therefore there's a lot of unexpected, undeserved. In a way, it means that you do not work for it. So lucky. So therefore, that is lucky. And of course, if it is in a weak position, then we will consider to be life up and down, that might result in it being inauspicious. Okay, so in a way, step number one, we identify what will be your D&E, and secondly, where is it? And now, once we identify where is it, we have to consider whether that element will be favorable or otherwise. Whether it's favorable or otherwise. How we read. Therefore, here coming back to Ananda Krishnan. Ananda Krishnan is Kueh water. Kueh water born in spring. At the peak of spring is weak, and not so unrooted. Therefore, here they will be considered to be a bit of a weak. And therefore, day master that is normally weak would welcome resource, and also would welcome the self, Therefore, that would be. But of course, in further we may want to consider what would that denote? What would it bring about? Alright. Therefore, here we would consider. So therefore, here we see that for the case of Ananda Krishna, the pillar. Here, what would it represent? It would represent your hurting officer sitting on friend. Therefore, it's a hurting officer sitting on friend star. Therefore, whether the pillar may be considered to be not negative, not so positive, not so positive at all. Alright, as we move along, therefore this will be just to look into the concept. So now here, if death and emptiness is found on the ear pillar, so in a way, if it is found in the ear pillar, then the indication often is negative. So even though death and emptiness may be auspicious, but usually we often consider it to be more negative than positive. More negative than positive. More negative than positive. So we would want to consider if the element is a negative element that's unfavorable and it's death and emptiness, then it would be good. So meaning to say that the best time for death and emptiness to be useful is that it is the unfavorable element that is being affected. So if not, we'll see that the ear pillar represents childhood. So the reading would be difficult childhood, poor, hardship, and no affinity, lack of affinity for the ear pillar would then also find itself having been excluded, lack of support would therefore in a way not popular. And secondly, if it is in the man pillar, then of course may suggest separation, weak relationships, and so on. Or sometimes we can find that they can be what we consider to be aloof, that be becoming detached. Negatively behave like a zombie. That means no emotion, not excited, just becoming on its aloof, on its own, quite detached. And here, if we found it on the day pillar, then it may represent a marital problem. Now, how can it be on a day pillar? That's sometimes when we can also look into the year. We can also explore the year, whether so not just the day master, but also the year in a way. And then likewise, of course, if it is born in the hour pillar, then it's isolation, challenges with children, or even with investment. Right, so here, as we consider, we consider, of course, that this death and emptiness also can be found in Chiman. And in Chiman, of course, drawing up death and emptiness is considered to be negative, one of the harms. In Yi Ching, if one draws the card to read and the outcome is death and emptiness, it also means that it is a gone case, so it fails. And likewise, of course, for death and emptiness, that it also may affect the main door. But negatively, we do find that in Feng Shui, sometimes in some schools, they use death and emptiness for things that are like monastery. Because basically, a monk, basically the life of a monk is one that is to be a life of detachment, a life where the person is empty or dead to the world, dead to the worldly affairs. Therefore, to lack ambitions, to lack worldly ambitions, and to lack material pursuits of things. Therefore, death and emptiness would find its suitability. Therefore, that would be how we may consider. So we want to read whether the death and emptiness would be one that is your whole life, or one that is within your luck pillar, Okay, come. Let's take a look into here. And so this will be. So what can you say about this person? So this person is a Renshen Day Master. So from the measurement, a Renshen Day Master, what would a Renshen Day Master have? We discussed this just a moment ago. Renshen Day Master would then have the dog and pig. So Renshen Day Master will be then the dog and the pig. So with the dog and the pig, then we can see here that the dog and the pig. So the dog is here, the dog is here. So next year is the year of the snake. So if next year is the year of the snake, snake will be the solitary star. Snake will be a solitary star. So solitary star will just mean that this person will likely be more alone. And sometimes to understand the person, then we may of course read why the person can be alone. Now let's come back to the death and emptiness. For the death and emptiness, of course, the dog represents the death and emptiness. So there is one that is on the natal chart on the year, one that is also on the also on the month. And so the reading is, of course, that it brings what I consider to be a bit more of a reduction. Now this is a Renshen Day Master. This is a Ren Water born in autumn. Strong Day Master, rooted with water, and it has the western direction, which is the monkey, the rooster, and the dog. Therefore, it has the atom set, metal set. So metal is very strong, water is very strong, very strong. So this is a very strong day master, very strong. Directional combo, that is correct. And so here it has heavenly virtue and wealth side by side with the talent side. Therefore, there are many positive manifestation here. You'll find talent and heavenly virtue. And death and emptiness. So this would then denote that the person's talent and heavenly virtue will still be there. Therefore, indirect wealth side by side will still be able to make money easily. And therefore, here sometimes with a bit of a detachment, it will mean that it creates a scenario where you can say that making money is easy. Making money is easy. So making money is easy via talent. Because why? Because very talented. So very talented at making money. Heavenly virtue. So very lucky to have opportunities and people come to them. And of course, this is a run water making fire, excited. But somehow when there's a death and emptiness now, making money is easy, but the person is quite detached. The person is quite detached. So here we may find that the person is not too overly obsessed or concerned about it. Therefore, that brings us to being aloof, being detached from it. And also find that it's being detached from family as well. Being detached. Therefore, the person may find that the priorities wouldn't be set there. So this would be consider how when we look into the death and emptiness. No, Corinne, the stems are not. Only the branches. But in a way, it affects the pillar. Because that's the whole pillar. So we refer to the pillar itself. In a way, you can say that the stem sits on the pillar. So the pillar sits on the branch. And the branch will be in death and emptiness. Yeah? Okay. And so sometimes, even like for Datuk Joy Yap, he would just say that if you just see death and emptiness, 50% discount. That means the reading will just be reduced. The reading will be mitigated. But somehow this is a bit good because why? Because it represents 7 killing. Therefore, in a way, you can say that 7 killing is in death and emptiness. So 7 killing is in death and emptiness. And more often than not, 7 killing is an indirect, inauspicious star. Therefore, if an inauspicious star is in death and emptiness, then this death and emptiness may be favorable, may exude beneficial luck for the person. Alright, so this would be the chapter 42, the main one. Now after chapter 42, as we wander off to the next chapter, we can take a look into chapter 43. Do I have this? Okay, and now to chapter 43. In chapter 43, it continues on the road. So this will be considered to be the road void. And for the road void, we now look into the day master. And can you tell me what would these day masters denote? If your day master is Jia and Ji. and this is your yi and ke. Can anybody see the pattern here? Can anybody see what all these patterns are? Very good, Corinne. Very good. These are your stem combos, isn't it? Huh? And so the rainwater combined with the ting fire produce what? What does rainwater and ting fire combines produce? What does it? What do they produce? So they produce wood. Huh? They produce wood. And therefore, as they produce wood, but somehow you can find that rainwater may find the tiger and the rabbit to be empty. Empty. So it's not a very easy thing to consider. And what do all this denote? So first of all, we try to recognize it. But normally, as I tried to explain earlier, usually more often than not, we look at. I think I've opened too many files. Let me just close it. So more often than not, when we look into the reading, we expect chapter 42 earlier to be the main one. So this is a bit more obscure, but we'll take a look. Now, how about Jia and Ji? Jia wood combines with Ji earth to produce what? What do they produce? Jia, what do they produce? So they produce earth. They produce earth. And so here, earth can be weakened by Shen and Yu. Coming to the metal. So therefore, you can see that would be metal. And then for it, I should not consider this. Okay, so this may be just consider that these are called intercepting road wide. Okay, so once again, identify intercepting road wide, but more often than not, intercepting road wide, we consider looking at the hour pillar. We look at the hour pillar. Look at the hour pillar. And so usually we would argue that this would not be considered to be proper. So if it's the hour pillar, let's try to take the sample just now. So let's say we come back to this chart. So come back to this chart. This chart would have on the hour pillar, we have the Chi earth. So this will be our Chi earth. So if it's a Chi earth, then what? Then what would represent? What would represent the road wide? The intercepting road wide for a Chi earth. And so for a Chi earth, we may find that the one that is on the intercepting road wide would then be Shen, the monkey, and the rooster. The monkey and the rooster. And if it's a rooster, then when we come in to look at the chart, the rooster is here. The rooster is here. Therefore, this pillar GU may be considered to be intercepting road wide. So there is an intercepting road wide, and here is a Shen, also intercepting road wide. Okay, so first of all, the hour pillar represents the later stage of a person's life. So we refer to the old age. And so when a person is senior, then the hour pillar becomes increasingly more prominent. And so here this pillar would have an intercepting road wide. So what does it mean? And how do we continue reading it as it is? So more often than not, we don't consider it to be somewhat. Like I said, all these are less significant. So we don't find too many charts actually pick this one out anymore. But what does it suggest? What does it suggest is that it may consider to be one that is on hardship. One that shows that the way intercepting road means there are obstacles. So it means that things won't go too smoothly. And so if it is at a later age, it may also denote. For women, this may be, for women of course, it may denote that there might be miscarriage. Because the hour pillar represents the children pillar. As it represents the children pillar, then if there is an intercepting roadblock, means difficulty in conceiving, difficulty in producing children. And for male, it can be also denote similar, but it also means that there is less affinity with children. So you may find that that they may be a bit more aloof, a bit more detached also as well. Right, but anyway, this will be the intercepting roadway, and that will be your chapter 43. Also an extension of death and emptiness, called the road D and E. Road D and E. Now as we move on to chapter 44. In chapter 44, these may be considered to be very, very specific stem branch combination. Very, very specific. And so they are called the 4 great voids. You don't find any softwares out there or any charts that we produce to actually follow this. So more often than not, all these chapters we just take it with a little bit or a pinch of salt, and we just put it at the back of our head if you have this. So here we may find that the 4 great voids will be just the Jayin and Jashin. Therefore, these 4 are also known as the 4 great voids. And the 4 great voids indicating that they are element that is missing, missing element. And if it's missing element, it just consider in the ancient text that these are hardship in life, lack of social status, and of course sometimes sudden calamities into that. So these are just what we call the 4 great voids, the 4 great voids. And with the exception of Jiachen and also your Jiaxi, which contains all the 5 elements in the group. Okay, and if we look into Judge, what happens here is that the 4 great voids begins with number 1, Judge, because what is missing is water. So water is missing. There you can see. And then as we look into the second one, where we can find that Jia, and for Jia that is here, Jia that is here. Then we consider that sometimes the element that is considered to be missing. Therefore, we may say that these are elements lacking. And so it's a bit difficult. It's a bit difficult to. I would say once again, we try not to burden our mind with so many formulas and so many things. It's not easy for one to remember. But of course, now luckily we do have softwares. And so as we look into the significance, we normally consider at the end of the day. At the end of the day, all these things can just be summarized into missing elements. Missing elements. And so this chapter need not be further. This chapter need not be further studied or further elaborate. Just that it actually resonates with the 10 gods in terms of missing element. Get out to chapter number 45. Chapter 45 now consider these 10 pillars. We consider these 10 pillars. Anyone has any of these 10 pillars? Anyone has any of these 10 pillars? And what would it denote? You have okay. So if you have these 10 pillars, and essentially this year is the year of the wood dragon, isn't it? So therefore considered this, or Gavin. Alright, good. And earlier we have Ananda Krishna that has also declared. Alright, so you have. Okay, so these 10 pillars, based on the poems, indicates that these combinations, pillars, they are not auspicious, they are inauspicious for military campaigns. Oh, you have a luck pillar. Now, not to worry too much about this, Karin. We're just going through some of the chapters to appreciate the so-called the literature to identify all this. Oh, your day pillar is 6. Okay, so your day pillar is this one. Right. And earlier we looked into a chart of Ananda Krishnan, which is Kuei Hai, which is also one of the top 10 richest person on earth. But anyway, usually more often than not, we don't read. Nowadays we don't read this as part of your natal chart. We normally read them to be external. External means luck pillar or annual pillar. So luck pillar or annual pillar, external. External indicates that the luck pillar, annual pillar would denote that there should be one should be more conservative. So basically, it's an invitation to avoid aggression. To avoid extreme action. Because why? When it says inauspicious for military campaigns, military campaign of course means to assault, to attack. Therefore, these are just the stamps not suitable for military campaign. So if anyone were to launch a military campaign this year, then this is not the best year to do. And furthermore, one also consider that this to be a warring pillar. Okay. So therefore here we do find anyone here tends to have a bit more aggression. Yes, correct. Gavin. Also the same. Therefore, so this year, next year, are also not auspicious for military campaign. So we do find that in this case the attacker or the initial, those who initiate would be expected to lose. Therefore, it's called the great defeat. The 10 evils and the great defeat. Okay, so in all simplicity, anyone with this luck pillar or annual pillar, if considering expansion, if considering doing business, therefore the best advice is, don't. Just wait for the time to be over. Alright, so therefore that will be just part of it. Okay, so anyway, there are some explanation to it, but more often than not, all these have been forgotten. So as we share along, we are here to expand our knowledge, to be more aware of such things, but more often than not, we don't really venture into it. Okay, so now let's come into the next one, which is called the 4 wasted days, or the 4 waste days. And for the 4 waste days, then now we look into this pillar. And so if anyone has this pillar, or arriving day, but of course it is associated with the associated with the season. Therefore, if the season is spring, then any Kangchen day is considered to be wasted. Now actually, in all simplicity, if the season is now, if we are now in winter, then any fire day will be very, very weak G. So basically all these are just weak G. That's all. Therefore that's just considered to be the great waste. So it's a wasted day. And of course, if it is a natal chart, pink but summer. Okay, pink but summer, okay, just not born in winter. So in a way, in all simplicity, once again, there's very little need for you to make an effort to memorize all these things. It just means out of season. And these elements here are pure elements in a way. Kangchen, metal monkey, metal sitting on metal, water sitting on water, wood sitting on wood, fire sitting on fire. Therefore, these are pure pillars, and pure pillars born out of season is wasted. Because why? Because pure elements vibrate strongly. So there's a stronger vibration being pure, because pure pillars can be super vibrant. Has the potential to be super vibrant, and it's such a waste if it's just born out of season. So that's just it. Alright. So in a way, you can see that later, when we compile all these poems, and when we compile all these dates, we begin to explain the pattern. So once the pattern is explained, then it will be easier for us to apply the pattern. The pattern, like what we have done earlier, whether it's rooted or not. So when we talk about rooting, when we talk about unrooted, when we talk about all these so-called waste days and so on, it actually means the same thing. But over the years, over the decades and centuries, we have refined it. Therefore, it saved us the great effort to go and memorize specific pillars. Okay, so with this, we have explored all the various chapters. Of all the chapters today, all these chapters are secondary. They are no longer to be considered to be the primary key, except for our chapter 42. So chapter 42 remains the main reference. So the depth and emptiness continues to apply in our today's reading. While the rest are just mostly for your appreciation, for your knowledge. Right, so with this, we have covered quite some good progress in terms of finishing off a few chapters today, and we'll see you next week as we wrap up on the volume 1 for this particular series. Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you next week then. Alright, good night, take care, good morning.